Welcome to the ethics class. My name is Samuel Rowe. We will be actually lecturing this afternoon on pornography and censorship. Pornography is actually rather difficult to define. Your author defines pornography as sexually explicit images or text meant to cause sexual excitement or arousal. Some feminists define pornography as sexually explicit material that degrades, demeans, and subordinates women. The U.S. Supreme Court has actually defined pornography as that which appeals to the prudent interests and which has no redeeming social, literary, or artistic value. There's a number of key terms that are listed in your textbook. Again, I'd encourage you to study those and get to know those. Those include such things as obscenity, which is a characteristic or property believed to render sexually frank material morally or legally unacceptable. Erotica, by contrast, is considered with sexual explicit material not portraying women in negative ways, but emphasizing the mutual satisfaction of sexual relationships between men and women. There are several arguments against the morality of pornography. First is that it is humanly degrading and it has become widespread and will destroy the very moral fabric of our civilization. Secondly, it can involve sexual crimes such as sexual murder, child molestation, and kiddie porn, which have and in fact does occur. Thirdly, it degrades human sexuality in general and women in particular. And lastly, it encourages the trafficking of sex, rape, child molestation, sadism and prostitution, exhibitionism and voyeurism, and other types of sexual perversions. Now, there are several moral arguments that are related to pornography, and they really fall into about 3 or 4 different categories. One is that consenting adults have a right to view, to read, or to listen to anything that they wish. Secondly, there is no proof that pornography is degrading or that it will destroy our moral fabric. Thirdly, it can involve actual crimes, but we have strong enough laws to stop such crimes from being committed. And fourthly, that it is degrading and exploitative in a matter of taste and opinion. To many, it is exciting and also pleasurable. Another related topic to pornography and censorship has been that related to prostitution. Prostitution, like pornography, is a confusing issue in morality. It essentially means people paying for sex or having sex for which they paid for. There are several arguments against prostitution. First, extramarital or commercialized sex is immoral from a conservative point of view. Secondly, prostitution causes crime and degrading. And thirdly, there is no faster or surer way of spreading socially transmitted diseases such as AIDS and gonorrhea and syphilis. The argument for prostitution also exists. One of those arguments says that it is a safe sexual release in a sexual repressive society. Secondly, it is a victimless crime in that both prostitutes and their customers or johns enter into the sexual activity freely and consenting. And thirdly, that if it were socially accepted governmental controls, then the criminal and social disease aspect of prostitution could be eliminated. There are certain countries around the world and certain places around the world where prostitution has been legalized, has been controlled by the government, and is regulated by the government. Another related topic that we talk about quite frequently as related to pornography and censorship is sexual perversion. Sexual perversion or unnatural sexual acts is also as difficult to define as pornography. But the conservative point of view is that sexual perversion are those activities that include such things as oral sex, anal sex, homosexuality, group sex, bestiality. The only sex activities that isn't perverted is sexual intercourse between a man and a woman, generally in the missionary position. The liberal viewpoint on sexual perversion, it varies. But in general, it states that as long as a sex act is performed between or among freely consenting adults, it is a matter of private discretion and should be considered as moral. Last comment I'd like to make about sexual perversion is related to bestiality. Bestiality is sex between human beings and animals. And it presents a very special problem in that it extends beyond the category of freely consenting adults. For this reason, some would say that this type of sex involves animal molestation and is therefore wrong. Yet, we might say that we kill animals and we eat them, and this is more respectable than having sex with them or letting them live. The extreme liberal would condone such activity. The moderate liberal might or might not condone it, and the conservative would vehemently condemn this activity. There are a number of pro-censorship approaches to this. One is that of legal moralism. Legal moralism is the idea that a community's important moral beliefs should have the force of a moral law behind it. Legal paternalism is the idea that sometimes the government may legitimately restrict citizens' freedoms for their own good. And that probably falls under the realm of utilitarianism. Legal moralism is a view that the community's important moral beliefs should be enforced by law, and denotes that a somewhat cultural, realistic stance on legislation regarding to the laws that we have in our community. And by in turn, legal paternalism says by nature it decreases the autonomy of the individual when we begin to restrict our citizens' freedoms for their own good. One of the activities that or concepts that's presented in your chapter is the Miller test, and I would encourage you to read that chapter to understand the Miller's test. The Miller's test, briefly, is a criteria for judging whether a work is legally obscene, as articulated in the trial that was entitled Miller versus California in 1973. The feminist viewpoint on censorship of pornography argues that pornographic material causes serious harm to women in our society. And that includes, but not limited to, physical harm toward women, discrimination against women, exploitation of women, oppression of women, and the devaluation of the dignity and the personhood of women in our culture and in our society. Some feminists argue against censorship. As you can see, there's always two sides to every story. Feminists argue, and citing that pornography is a freedom that is advocated and supported by the Freedom of Speech Amendment in our Constitution. Freedom of speech is the ally of those who seek to change our culture and our society. This free speech protects, as is argued, not only the rights of women, but the rights of our society, and has been voiced and censored for centuries. What are some of the moral perspectives on pornography and censorship? Immanuel Kant, in his deontology theory, argues for censorship. Says if pornography is seen as using women as a means to an end, you may want to go back and review chapter 6 that talks about non-consequentialism. One of Kant's basic premises is not seeing everyone as having intrinsic value and not using them as a means to someone's end. Conversely, Kantians could argue against censorship because it denatures personal autonomy. Again, I'd like to thank you for your undivided attention. I just wanted to give you just a short overview of the primary reading there in the introductory reading in chapter 11. I want to also encourage you to learn the terms related to pornography and censorship, and to review the case studies at the end of the chapter and the primary source readings. Some of the primary source readings that you have at the end of this chapter are very insightful. Until next time, thank you.